Good morning and welcome. I'm Anna Southall and I'm the trustee of the Barrow Cadbury Trust with lead responsibility for its criminal justice work. It's a huge pleasure and a privilege indeed to welcome you all to T2A's National Conference today. I wanted to say just a very few words for those that don't know about the work of the Barrow Cadbury Trust and a little bit about our interest in the criminal justice system and in young adults. The Trust was established in 1920 by Barrow Cadbury, who was the son of Richard, one of the two Cadbury brothers who were responsible for developing really their father's chocolate making business in Birmingham. Richard and George and other members of the family indeed were significant social reformers and benefactors in the city at the time. And Barrow, together with his wife Geraldine Southall, continued that tradition of philanthropy. Geraldine herself was very personally involved and personally concerned with the manner in which the criminal justice system of the day treated children and young people. And she played a very significant and very active role in the establishment of both juvenile courts and the probation service in this country. She worked tirelessly. The accounts that I've read recently of her involvement, both at a sort of policy level but also at a grassroots level as a Justice of the Peace, is extraordinary. The Trust is still family run. Ruth Cadbury is its chair, and most of the trustees, not all now, most of the trustees are direct descendants of Barrow and Geraldine. And it has, throughout its history, been committed to social justice and with a very, very strong interest, an enduring interest in penal reform. A key concern of the Trust today is how to achieve a more effective system, and particularly in the field of criminal justice, a more effective system for young adults. And by young adults, we're talking about those aged 18 to 25 or thereabouts. So why this age group? Why young adults? The criminal justice system recognises the special needs of children, and I am not going to defend the juvenile estate, but nonetheless there is a focus on diversion, a more holistic approach, and there are closer links when dealing with the younger age group with other services. But once a person reaches their 18th birthday, literally overnight, the state now treats them as full-blown adults, absolutely regardless of their stage of maturity or vulnerability. And as we all know, many of them are extremely vulnerable, having faced considerable disadvantage and during their early and often very chaotic lives. It's also true that young people take up a disproportionate amount of time within the current system. Just a few stats that I think many of you will be familiar with, but I think it's good to remind us at the beginning of today. Those aged 18 to 24 account for less than 1/10, that's less than 10% of the UK population, but they account for over 30%, so something of the order of 1/3 of all those sentenced to prison each year, for 1/3 of the probation services workload, and thus 1/3 of the total economic and social costs of crime. So central to our work is the recommendation that emotional maturity should be taken into account in the sentencing of young adults. What we do know is that brain development continues into the mid to late 20s, particularly in those regions affecting judgment and reason and impulse control. So a significant proportion of young adults, including very many in the criminal justice system, exhibit maturity and development levels that you might more often associate with the characteristics of much younger people. On the plus side, young adults are the most likely age group to desist from offending, to grow out of crime, as it were. However, and I think this is very important, the wrong intervention at this time can result in extending rather than shortening the period during which a young person might commit a crime. The focus of criminal justice interventions should not just be on punishment and reparation, but on encouraging desistance from crime by supporting the factors that reduce criminal behaviour, factors such as employment, such as housing, such as health. And this is no less true now in these times of economic constraint than it was a year or two ago. But our system is failing to deliver effective interventions. More than half the young adults that are released from prison are reconvicted within a year. If we can crack the system for young adults, I would argue that we can save in economic as well as in social terms. Later on, we'll hear about 3 of the T2A pilot projects that Barrow Cadbury is supporting, all of which demonstrate slightly differently effective approaches to working with young adults in the criminal justice system. And we hope that this conference today, by drawing together speakers from many areas that are interested in this question of maturity, that we give you a useful overview of the challenges facing young adults today, and particularly those that are at risk of entering or indeed are already within the criminal justice system. And we hope that by the close of the conference, a strong case will have been made for a more appropriate and more effective approach for these young people, both in terms of improving their lives and thus in terms of improving society as a whole.